There are voices, and then there are voices that feel like they don't belong to this world. A voice so pure, so powerful, that it could make millions cry with a single note. That voice belonged to Whitney Houston. She wasn't just famous, she was unforgettable. A global icon, a superstar, a legend. But here's the truth most people don't want to face. The same voice that brought joy to millions was hiding a life full of pain. Because behind the fame, behind the spotlight, behind the perfect smile, Whitney Houston was slowly falling apart. This is not just a success story. This is not just a music story. This is the story of how fame, love, and inner demons can destroy even the brightest star. From a young girl singing in a church, to becoming the biggest voice on the planet, and then to losing everything. This is the story of the voice of an angel and the life that couldn't survive the world. And once you hear it, you'll never listen to her songs the same way again. Whitney Houston's story begins far from the bright lights of fame in the streets of Newark, where music wasn't just entertainment, it was a way of life. Born into a deeply musical family, Whitney didn't need to search for inspiration. It lived inside her home. Her mother, Cissy Houston, was already a respected name in gospel music, and young Whitney grew up surrounded by powerful voices, rehearsals, and the emotional depth of church performances. But even in that environment, something about Whitney stood out. Her voice wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. It carried a richness, a control, and an emotional weight that felt far beyond her years. People who heard her sing as a child often said the same thing. This girl was different. In church, Whitney found her first stage. It wasn't about fame back then, it was about feeling, about connection, about something spiritual. When she sang, people didn't just hear her, they felt her. That ability to connect emotionally would later become her greatest strength and perhaps, in some ways, her greatest burden. Because when the world expects you to always give everything, eventually, there's nothing left to give. As she grew older, Whitney began stepping into the professional world of music, starting as a background singer. It was a humble beginning, but her voice refused to stay hidden. It demanded attention. And soon, the right person noticed. Clive Davis saw in Whitney what the world had yet to fully understand, a once-in-a-generation talent. He didn't just sign her, he believed in her. And with that belief, Whitney Houston's rise began. Her debut album changed everything. It wasn't just successful, it was historic. Song after song climbed the charts, turning her into a household name almost overnight. But what made Whitney different wasn't just her success, it was how she made people feel. Tracks like Greatest Love of All became more than music. They became messages of hope, self-worth, and emotional strength. And then came the moment that defined her career forever, I Will Always Love You. A song so powerful, so emotionally overwhelming, that it became one of the best-selling singles of all time. It wasn't just a performance, it was an experience. At the height of her success, Whitney crossed into Hollywood with The Bodyguard. The film, alongside its legendary soundtrack, elevated her status even further. She wasn't just a singer anymore, she was a global icon. Fame followed her everywhere. Cameras, interviews, expectations, it all became part of her daily life. To the world, she had everything. But fame has a way of creating illusions. Because while the world saw perfection, Whitney was beginning to feel the pressure of living up to it. Then came love. Her relationship with Bobby Brown was intense, passionate, and complicated. At first, it seemed like a fairy tale. Two stars finding each other in a world that rarely allows genuine connection. But over time, that fairy tale turned into something far more turbulent. Their marriage became a constant subject of media attention, filled with controversy, arguments, and public scrutiny. And in the middle of it all was Whitney, trying to hold on to herself while everything around her felt unstable. The pressure of fame, combined with personal struggles, began to take a toll. Slowly, almost quietly at first, Whitney started slipping. Rumors of drug use began circulating. Interviews started to feel different. The sparkle in her eyes, the confidence in her presence, it began to fade. And then came the hardest part for fans to accept. Her voice started to change. The same voice that once felt untouchable now showed signs of strain. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't the same. Addiction is not something that happens overnight. It creeps in slowly, quietly, until it takes control. For Whitney Houston, it became a battle she fought both publicly and privately. There were moments when she tried to come back, moments when it seemed like she might reclaim her place at the top. But each comeback was harder than the last. The world wanted the old Whitney, the perfect Whitney. But the reality was, she was human, and she was struggling. Her later years were filled with ups and downs. Performances that reminded people of her greatness. Her death wasn't just shocking, it was heartbreaking, because it felt like watching someone fall and not being able to stop it. The industry lost a legend. Fans lost an icon. But more than that, the world lost a story that still had so much left to tell. Today, Whitney Houston's legacy lives on. Her music continues to inspire, to heal, to move people across generations. Her voice still echoes in songs that feel just as powerful today as they did decades ago. But her story serves as something deeper than inspiration. It serves as a warning, because Whitney Houston's life reminds us that fame is not always what it seems. That behind the applause, there can be silence. Behind the spotlight, there can be darkness. And behind even the most perfect voice, there can be pain. She gave the world everything she had. And in the end, it cost her everything. Whitney Houston wasn't just a superstar. She was a moment in history. A voice that will never be replaced. A story that will never be forgotten. And maybe that's why her music still feels so powerful. Because every note carries not just her talent, but her truth.